Most people think night changes the world, but it doesn't. The streets are still there. The buildings are still there. Your life is still the same. And yet, at 2 a.m., everything feels different. A memory you haven't thought about in years suddenly appears. A small mistake feels impossible to forget. A feeling you've ignored all day becomes impossible to escape. It's strange, because these thoughts were always there, waiting. For most of human history, night meant something very simple. The day was over. Work stopped. The world became quiet. And slowly, people disappeared into the dark. Night was a boundary, a clear line between doing and being. But that line feels harder to find now, because the modern day never really ends. Our bodies may be home, but our attention isn't. The moment we wake up, the noise begins. Notifications, messages, news, videos, conversations, advertisements, opinions, an endless stream of things demanding a small piece of our attention. And somehow, it follows us all the way into the night. The lights stay on, the screens stay on, the world stays open, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no sunset for the internet, no closing time for social media, no final train leaving the station. Everything remains available, always waiting, always moving, always asking for one more minute. And during the day, this constant noise does something interesting. It protects us, not intentionally, but effectively, because when your attention is occupied every second, there's very little room left for reflection, very little room left for uncomfortable questions, very little room left for yourself. The day gives us somewhere to look, somewhere to go, something to do, and because of that, we rarely notice what's happening underneath. The unfinished emotions, the worries we postponed, the memories we never processed, the loneliness we distracted ourselves from. They remain hidden, not gone, just buried beneath movement, buried beneath noise, buried beneath another scroll, another video, another conversation, another task. But eventually, something changes. The messages slow down. The streets become quieter. The world starts pulling away. And for the first time all day, there is space, real space, the kind that's becoming increasingly rare. And in that silence, something begins to rise. Thoughts that couldn't be heard before, feelings that couldn't compete with the noise, parts of ourselves that spent the entire day waiting for a moment of quiet, waiting for us to finally notice them. Because the strange truth is this: night doesn't create these feelings, it reveals them. And that's where the night begins to feel different. Not because the darkness changes who we are, but because the darkness removes everything that was distracting us from ourselves. There's a reason why certain thoughts arrive at night. And it's not because they suddenly appeared. They were there all along. You just couldn't hear them. During the day, your attention is constantly moving from one thing to another. One conversation, one task, one screen, one distraction. Your mind rarely gets the chance to stay still. And when it does, something interesting happens. The brain starts filling the silence. Psychologists sometimes describe this as the mind's default state, the place it returns to when there's nothing demanding immediate attention. A strange mental landscape built from memories, unfinished emotions, future worries, and questions that never receive an answer. Most of the time, we don't spend much time there because modern life gives us endless ways to avoid it. But night changes the equation. The world slows down. The distractions become weaker. And suddenly, your mind has room to wander. Backwards, forwards, everywhere except the present moment. You remember conversations from years ago, moments that seemed insignificant at the time, Things you wish you had said, things you wish you hadn't. A face, a voice, a version of yourself that no longer exists. And somehow, they all feel closer after dark, almost as if the night shortens the distance between now and then. Maybe that's why memories feel different at night. Not because they're more important, but because they're no longer competing with everything else. For the first time all day, they have your full attention, and attention changes everything. A small regret becomes a heavy regret. A passing worry becomes a serious worry. A quiet feeling of loneliness becomes impossible to ignore. The night doesn't make emotions stronger. It simply removes the noise that kept them quiet, which is why a problem that seemed manageable at 3 p.m. can feel overwhelming at 2 a.m. The facts haven't changed. The situation hasn't changed. Only the silence has. And in that silence, every feeling suddenly has room to echo. That's the strange thing about the night. It isn't empty at all. It only feels empty because the outside world becomes quieter. But inside, the mind is often louder than ever. During the day, we play a lot of roles: employee, student, friend, partner, stranger. We move from one situation to another, adjusting ourselves without even noticing, saying the right thing, doing what's expected, keeping up with the rhythm of everyone around us. And most of the time, it works. The day is built for performance. There are places to be, deadlines to meet, people to answer, responsibilities to carry. So we keep moving. And while we're moving, there isn't much time to ask how we actually feel. There isn't much time to sit with ourselves long enough to notice what's missing. But night is different because eventually all those roles begin to disappear. The messages stop, the meetings end, the conversations fade away, and one by one, the distractions leave the room until there is only one person left: you. And that's when the night starts to feel honest. Not comfortable, not always pleasant, but honest, because there is nobody left to perform for, nobody left to impress, nobody left to convince. The version of yourself that survives the night is usually the version that's hardest to meet during the day, the one carrying old memories, unanswered questions, quiet fears, hidden loneliness, the parts that don't often get a chance to speak. Sometimes that's why people stay awake longer than they intended. Not because they aren't tired, but because the night feels strangely real. For a few hours, the noise of the world becomes weaker, and the distance between you and your thoughts becomes smaller. You start noticing things: how quickly time is moving, how much life has changed, how many people quietly disappeared, how different you are from the person you used to be. Thoughts that would never survive the daylight rush. Thoughts that only exist when everything slows down. Maybe that's why so many important realizations happen at night. Not because the night gives us answers, but because it finally gives us silence. And sometimes, silence is the only thing that allows us to hear the truth. Maybe the strangest thing about the night is that it changes the way we see everything. Not just ourselves. Everything. A street you've walked down 100 times suddenly feels unfamiliar. A city full of people feels empty. A room you've known for years feels larger somehow, quieter, more distant, as if the world is revealing a version of itself that only exists after dark. During the day, our attention is pulled toward activity, movement, goals, schedules, the next thing, and the next thing after that. We look at the world through usefulness, what needs to be done, where we need to go, who we need to become. But at night, all of that loses its urgency. The future feels farther away. The day is already over. There is nothing left to chase. For a few hours, existence becomes observation. You sit by a window, watch rain slide down the glass, watch distant lights flicker between buildings, watch strangers pass through the darkness, and suddenly, things that seemed ordinary all day become strangely beautiful. Not because they've changed, because you've changed. Your attention changes, your pace changes, your mind changes. The world finally stops rushing past you. And for a moment, you actually see it. Maybe that's why so many memories feel connected to the night. Late night train rides, empty roads, long walks home, conversations that lasted until sunrise. Moments that felt small while they were happening, but stayed with us for years. Because the night has a way of slowing reality down, just enough for us to notice it, just enough for us to feel it. And maybe that's what makes the night feel so different now. In a world that never stops moving, the night is one of the last places where slowness still exists. One of the last places where nothing is demanding your attention. One of the last places where you can simply sit and watch the world breathe. For a little while, the noise fades, the rush fades, the performance fades, and all that's left is you, the city lights, the quiet hum of the night, and a strange feeling that this version of the world was here all along, waiting for everyone else to leave.